welcome everybody to the Eindhoven Innovation Café. Oh, I will pause a little bit here. We have a new setting today. We will be sitting down because it's better for you. Huh? Welcome everybody to the Eindhoven Innovation Café. My name is Charlotte Grun. I'm a social designer based in Eindhoven, and every month I'm the moderator of the Innovation Café, and this is always my fun time because I can meet so many interesting new people, designer, researchers, new perspectives, and all of you. So welcome. Tonight we will talk about bio-based materials, but that's not normal bio-based material, but sexy bio-based materials. Well, I think sexy is a bit, yeah, it's also sexy, but I think most of all fun, inspiring bio-based materials. And we have these lovely women over here. And it's not that we discuss if we need bio-based materials. We need them, and they are here. But how can they become seductive, you know? Desirable, that we really want to have them. And how can that help us changing, fastening the system? Sam, that is what you will talk about more further. Who is here for the first time today? Okay, welcome. Nice that you're here. We will have like 3 speakers. They will have like a short presentation, and afterwards you are allowed to ask questions. I will come to you, give me a sign, and you can ask them questions, because the idea is that we have a dialogue about the subject, bio-based materials, but sexy bio-based materials. Well, let's start with Beatriz and Alessia. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Beatriz and Alessia. You guys have Materia Futura. You said it much more nicer with your Italian accent. You both are designers, both with a fashionable fashion background, which is quite interesting. Yeah, please present what you. We have one picture. Oh, you don't? No, sorry.
Now it's going.
Okay.
We don't have a picture.
Yeah, you created all these amazing materials, which look funny, sexy, fashionable.
Yeah, so basically we started working on this project 1 year ago, and we started from 3 questions. And the first question was, how can we create nice, like beautiful biomaterials, and how can we convince people that biomaterials don't have to be pale in their color palette, and we can really push and highlight the aesthetic of these materials. And so from this question we started working together and exploring in craft, and also bringing our expertise. And I think the main strength of our project is actually the empathy we had in understanding what people are attracted by. And so we started thinking about the digital world. Everyone is so obsessed sometimes by the texture that they can find just on a phone and online, like this mesmerized effect, iridescence, and colorful palette. So that's the way we started. But then we were also thinking, okay, but there is a lot of colors in nature, so let's bring people back to reality.
We had a small conversation before, and you told me that you worked for like big luxury brands, for example,
yes.
Gucci, you told me.
Yeah.
Why did you stop working for them?
There are many reasons why.
Okay.
But actually, as a material designer, for me, at some point, working for these big brands was a bit frustrating because I couldn't express my creativity. Also, I was in the embroidery department, so completely covered by plastic, constantly paillettes everywhere. And I wanted to investigate in new possibilities. So that's the reason why the curiosity of finding new solutions, and that's what brought me to Amsterdam, actually.
Nice. Yeah. And for you, Beatriz?
So I think it's taking a bit from what Alessia was saying about the project. For me, it was always a matter of telling the stories of biomaterials from a different angle. So bringing this aesthetic perspective as the first thing to impact. So how can then we source from this digital locked world that we are in, but also where this mesmerizing is in nature. So when we think of the butterflies with their iridescence, when we think about minerals and their shimmering effects, so all of these things have been naturally attracting us. And this is also what today is very much linked to plastic. So if you think of something that is holographic, that is shiny, that is translucent, you're like, yeah, that's plastic, that's acrylic, but it doesn't have to be so. So we took that twist, and then sourcing from these different inspirations brought these materials to life by blending different techniques, by blending different textures, and playing a lot with this concept. So, yeah.
And you also have a fashion background in fashion, but also kind of Gucci, but different Gucci kind of a background.
Yeah, it's more in the mainstream fashion retail. So I was working as a buyer back in Brazil. I'm Brazilian. I was really sitting in between designer and the factory, so we were outsourcing all the production. But at this time, I really started seeing. In me, I always had this attraction in how things are made, what they're made of, and what is the technology behind that, how can they be changed, or how we don't perceive them. So I went into my path more and more into design, and more into this idea of the materials behind it. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I ended up having my own brand, which was focused on accessories for carnival, so where everything was shiny and holographic and all of this. But then I was only working with PU, which is polyurethane, PVC coating, so all like the most nasty things that in a year they started to peel off, like they were gorgeous when you bought them, and then they were just starting to damage, but not degrading. They were just damaged plastic that would last for a long time. So at that moment, I'm like, well, what else is there that can be used? And this led me into more of the design part of the materials itself. And this is also when I moved to Amsterdam, so also when I got in touch with this type of materials and this type of research. And I went more and more into it the past years. Yes.
Can we touch it?
Yes.
Can we all touch it, or just me?
Yeah.
Just asking.
Exactly.
Because when I look at this, for me it doesn't look bio-based at all. I will show some stuff. Mm-hmm. And you can also come a bit closer if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to pass.
We also have the exhibition here, so you can also take a look later. And oh, sorry. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it doesn't look biodegradable at all. You know, it always looks very well. I don't know, I'm kind of used to plastics, I think, that it's kind of used
maybe
like
I can
that.
share a bit on what's behind them. So when we talk about bio-based or biodegradable, so on the choices of the ingredients, we source colors that are mainly with natural pigments. So almost all the colors that you see are coming from food dyes. So we were looking at food dyes, and that were with colorants, non-synthetic colorants. So for the yellows, we have turmeric, but you also have vitamin D or B. One of the vitamins is also already a natural yellow colorant.
Wow.
But chlorophyll for greens, or spirulina. And the reds also for madder. So things that can also be used for natural dyes, for instance. But when you use the food dye, they're much more concentrated. So this was a choice for us to go already with something that could have this depth in terms of color intensity. For the metallic effect that you see, we are working with mica, which is then a mineral pigment. So mica. And that in itself is inorganic, so you would say it won't biodegrade, but it's not. It's completely different than the microplastics that you would find in regular glitter or shimmery powders. Today, most of the makeups, for instance, have it. And just to conclude, then the holographic part, it's then, I think, also really the core of the most instinctive part of the textures. This is all based in optical diffraction. So this is based on the mold that we are using. It carries this pattern on a microscopic level. So it acts just like a prism. When the light is hitting the material surface, it's reflecting with this pattern and creating this structural color. So it's not something that we put on top of the material, it's the way the material is made itself.
I think you can, I don't know, because it depends on the angles, so I don't know where you're. Yeah.
Wow. And you guys met at the Waag here in the Netherlands. Huh? You did a collaboration or a program together. What kind of program was that?
Yeah, so basically, while I was during my journey, when I joined, Beatriz was teaching there, but was maybe you can explain better was the topics. But basically, the reason why I joined this course was because I wanted to dive deep into bio-based, but also new technologies. But we were exploring with many different
because
topics.
You were the student, and
I was the
you were the
student.
teacher.
She was the teacher.
One of the teachers. Yeah.
If you want
and
to
that's
dive
how
deep in the
your collaboration started.
Yeah, I mean, actually, while I was developing my final project, Beatriz was there, like taking pictures, making videos, and I think that's also where the magic started between us. Because I mean, I was really like trying to do as much as I could in terms of techniques, and we were getting inspired by each other. I think so. That's the way we met, and it was 2023, 22.
Okay. Wow. And normally at the Innovation Café, we always have like two speakers, like a designer connected to industry or to research. And that's why we have Sam for the University of Amsterdam Applied Science. But actually, normally when we have, we asked you guys, who could we bring for research? And you came up with Sam. Why did you came up with Sam? Because you can do a better introduction of her than me. Because
she knows better than Sam.
Yeah, we have to share the mic. So
that's hard. No, I think it's Sam is working at HVA and also Amphi, so where Amphi is also at, and she's now leading the research and the educational programs related to the Biomaterials studio. So it's really working with biomaterials and similar what I used to work with at the VAG. So I worked for 3 years as an instructor on this course, but also in different research programs. But the VAG sits in sort of like in this in-between place of educational, but the governmental bodies and the citizens. And I think what Sam does in the university has much more of this educational lenses and the systemic change, and how do you activate that with students on different levels from different perspectives. So I was really interested to see to hear and learn more about her experience with the students, their starting points, and especially, let's say, difference from fashion students to other disciplines as well. I think everyone relates a bit different from.
Yeah, and also not only about the solutions, but also the relationship.
Exactly.
With the material.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for that introduction. I could not have explained it better. Great. Yeah. I think, well, what we do at the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences, we have the Biomaterials Studio, which is basically, well, it's a surprise. It will come in the next slide.
Yeah, we will have the slide.
There it is. It's basically a community biolab. It's for teachers, researchers, students to get acquainted with what is biodesign, to work with biomaterials. Because so it's students from the Amsterdam Fashion Institute, but also students from engineering, applied physics, like all over the university. And basically, when we work with the design students, usually the choice for materials is somewhere around 3/4 of the process. So you have to know the functionalities, you have to know the aesthetics appearance that you want of the final product, and then you select the material. So this idea about materials is very sort of, materials are off the shelf, you can take it and you can just apply it. So with the studio, we really try to sort of change this thinking into how can you think differently about materials, because we cannot use these extractive practices that we have with materials anymore. So we really have to change the thinking. So working with biomaterials for us really starts from the materials. So you have to think about what kind of system is it coming from. If I'm using something from agriculture, is it like mainly for food? Can I use like a by-stream? What is the quantity that we're talking about? Is it something that is very seasonal? Is it something that is grown a lot? Where is it grown? Does it have to travel? So you come into all kinds of questions which are quite complicated if you just wanted to make a nice product. I mean, that's a very superficial definition of design, of course, but it is quite complex. And with the studio, we try to give students an entrance point, and I think this work of Materia Futura is so inspirational for the students, because it really reframes their ideas of biomaterials. Because
And you also brought a picture.
Oh yeah.
It looks different colors.
Yeah.
more traditional.
De geitenwolle sokken.
Geitenwolle sokken, we explained.
Yeah.
For the not Dutch people, geitenwolle sock is like the woolen traditional socks that my grandma used to make, knit for me. You know, like in Dutch we call it geitenwolle sock.
Yeah, I will try to give it a bit of a sexy twist. But what you see here is actually, we did a project together with an agricultural research institute. So they really work at improving the health of the soil. So in the Netherlands we have quite a big problem with the salination of the soil. Well, I'm not going to go into that, but at least they were trying to see, are there certain crops that really help with get the soil out of the salt out of the soil? And sugar beets do that. They were also used after in 1953 in New Zealand. So what actually happens is that all the salt gets absorbed by the sugar beets, and it's not in the sugar beet itself, but it's only in the leaf. So you can still use the sugar beets, but there's no regular use for the leaves, because normally you would leave it on the land, but if you do that in this case, you dump the salt back. So they came to us like, what can we do with those leaves? So this is a very introductory project with students in a minor, and they just start to explore like, what can we make with this? And what you see here is a project from a student who was looking at the fibers, and he really loved the fibers. He combined it with a cellulose polymer. You get a material that has sort of a latex look and feel. So you really have to treat it as latex. So then going through this material and sort of working with it, seeing the look and feel, he came up with this rafer outfit. So there's no added color. You could, of course, add color, but this is more really about the materials and the fibers themselves. This is usually a 6-week project. Students just explore the material.
6 weeks?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really short. Okay. And then after that, they go into their own ID and their own projects. So this is just one of the things that we do.
Wow. This looks really nice. We also talked about a little bit about the seasons. Seasons in fashion. We know that fashion has many seasons, and that's why now we see more of people who are wearing the same clothes at TV, you know, just to show them they are more sustainable. But if you look at it from a bio-perspective way, Alessia, I think this is more of your topic. You could look at it from a totally different perspective.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, the approach is completely different. So thinking about the big brands in these large companies, there are many seasons. And we are not talking just about season, we are talking about capsule collection that are coming in between. Mm-hmm. I remember working at 7, 8 collections within 6 months, a year. So we need to change the approach. And these big companies, I'm not sure if they're ready, but we can definitely do something. But these materials, they are not going to last forever. They are going to biodegrade at some point at certain temperature and condition. So we need to get also used to, you know, get attached to something, but then also be able to let them go in a way. Which is, I mean, I see some faces a bit annoyed by that, but that's also part of biomaterials. Like, we cannot let them forever. So, and if you're going to make something that is going to last forever, then we are talking about plastic and something that we cannot get rid of at some point.
Yeah. So we have to look at it from a different perspective,
yeah.
And also look at it as a different system.
Definitely, yeah. I think the idea is that that materials have to be long-lasting, and I think, you said this before, like the ideas that we have or the connotations that we have with sustainability are focused on a long-lasting idea of materiality. Well, maybe we need to embrace the fact that they're ephemeral, that they're temporal, that they're transient. If you look in essence, like how long would you wear something or how long would you use it? Of course, that you always have to see that in relation to the energy that it takes to produce something. Mm-hmm. But I think there are also materials, especially when you're talking about the materials that you use, that you can easily reuse. Yeah. And I think there are very interesting combinations to be critical of the energy that you use, but to be conscious about the material, that it can be reused, and to combine these kind of things.
And is it also possible that we feel more connected to nature again, or becoming part of nature again, if our materials are not lasting that long, or will be, you know, like the season will just, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I know the answer, but I hope so too. I hope that we will become more connected to nature. I think it's also, we are talking about nature as something outside of us, which just shows how weird it is constructed in a, but that is what we live in. And I just hope that we can overcome that.
Wow, yeah. Does anybody has a question for them? Hans.
Yeah, I have in my mind biomaterials, and I thought about wool. And wool is something which is very lasting. You have, if you go back to let's say, a lot of shops, they send second-hand, let's say, clothing, and that's very often wool-based or leather-based or things which are in fact also biomaterial. How you see that in the relation to this material?
Wool is often biodegradable, and you can also see that how easy your jumper can be eaten by the moths if they happen to find them in your closet. And yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they
here we talk about a shorter lifetime,
yeah.
not 10 years or eaten by moths.
Yeah, exactly. So on certain conditions they will degrade. So also if you bury your under the earth, they will start degrading, and that's the beauty of it. But keep in good conditions inside your closet, it can last through generations. And then I think that's also where design plays a role, like which type of jumper would you have to be passed on generations. When you talk about leather, the biodegradability is a little bit more tricky because the way the leather is treated can become more or less biodegradable. It depends on how you want to consider that.
Yeah.
And when we think in relation to our materials, then they're much more sensitive. So let's say these ones are actually, when we talk about the biodegradability here, we are talking about really home composting. So you could potentially just put them in your garden and let them compost. The base biopolymers that we're using are either gelatin. For most of the very plasticky looky like, there's gelatin, but we also use agar, which is the vegan form of gelatin based on algae. And also alginate, which is also a seaweed biopolymer. And all of those are using different ingredients within the recipe, so as plasticizers like glycerine, but then like we mentioned already, the natural colorants. So potentially all of this is non-toxic and just eaten up by regular bacteria and fungi finding soil, which is a big pro, but it's also a limitation in terms of applications. All of that. What you see here, it's still more of a proof of concept, and of course we want to have them usable at a certain level. But when we talk specifically for fashion, for instance, it's still like, okay, how do we make them, the material properties more in tune with the expected use of them?
What intrigues me with your question, Hans, it feels like I didn't thought about it before, but when you were presenting your work, I feel like there's a new way of looking at sustainability popping up, kind of. You know, I feel like I always felt like it should last forever, but in a natural way, with a base made in a natural material. But when I look at this, it looks funny, playful, sexy, and it doesn't have to last forever. I can just own it or use it, not owning it, but using it for a season or 2 or 3 or 4. And it's okay to give it back to nature, kind of.
Yeah, maybe also coming back to that question, I think in wool there's also quite a difference in qualities.
Sure.
And the wool with the shorter hairs that we make, we cannot use the longer fibers. Those kind of things are very interesting to mix with, because then you're using like combinations of bi-streams that could really reinforce each other, and especially with the bioplastics. It's super interesting to see how it reacts to wool and how it actually reinforces the qualities of your materials and also the properties of the first polymer you're using. So that is also very interesting to explore. It doesn't always have to mean that it's competing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's both. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Does anybody else has a question?
I'm really interested in the relationship that we should build with the materials. That we need a shift in that. Can you tell us something how you do that at the university?
Yeah, the relationship. This is always sort of the more. It really depends on what kind of students I have. So I would say that I'm now going to generalize. I'm sorry. The fashion students really come to biomaterials for the relation, and I'm sorry if I'm generalizing. Okay, this is just my experience from Amphi various situations.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Don't worry.
And I get also a lot of students from engineering, and they are not interested in that kind of aspect. So they're really looking at the technical aspects. And then then the question becomes, how can we get them to that level to really think differently about the relation with material? We do that through a combination of very practical hands-on learning in the studio, like with actually making the materials. So there is a sort of dimension of, we can talk about these materials, but in the making itself, you learn a lot. It doesn't work the first time, so it's very humbling because you think you know how to make things, and then all of a sudden you're messing things up, and there's a lot to learn in there. So in a way, that relation is also in the making process because you have to relate differently to it. And I see that just by making it, students already relate differently and also appreciate things much more. So the question becomes, for instance, they're making it starts to morph, it starts to shrink, and then they first consider it as that's an aesthetic appeal. Well, I'm not liking that, or I am liking it. But then all of a sudden they start to think, there could also be a possibility. Is it doing this because of the heat or the moist, or is it because I mix it with something? So it's a sort of the unpacking of what is actually going on in the material. I'm going a bit away from the question, I think, but there's a lot of entrances towards getting them to rethink the relation.
And for you, because we saw when you enter the Kaserne, on the left side, you see this kind of pink playful curtain. Sorry? Curtain, yeah. And what was the relationship in that project?
Actually, I remember the first question, we were together with Anemone, and then we were showcasing our idea on what we wanted to bring at Dutch Design Week. And then we were brainstorming, and then looking at this sequence, we were like, actually, Anemone was like, oh, we should make something huge. And just 2 months before the exhibition, so we were like, okay, how can we do that? And then that's the way we started thinking about making a curtain completely covered by sequins. And so it was like 2 months cooking, and then at the end we ended up making 3,000 sequins, like cutting, and was
actually, it
a
was
massive
-1, huh?
-1 because it felt, and now it's on my.
Use it.
But so basically, we had a massive production of sequins at the end, and then we were also thinking, how can we apply this sequins on top? And we didn't manage to cover a full curtain, so then we also had to visualize kind of pattern to stitch on the curtain at the entrance. And that's the beauty behind this outcome was also the collective of women together in craft we created, but like completely unexpected, because we were like, okay, let's make the curtain, but then at some point we didn't have enough hands, so we asked our family, like our moms coming from Italy and Brazil, our friends, and then we ended up with 25, almost 30 friends, and we were organizing evenings stitching together, or like days at my studio, like stitching, and that was beautiful because also we kind of come both from a background where our grandmas and moms are also they do stitching and embroideries, so we are just bringing something in the present from like our past. So that was beautiful. And the name of the curtain at the entrance is Venus. So
Venus.
Venus.
Ah, Venus.
Yeah, Venus. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's how we started working on this project,
Yeah.
and on that specific piece.
So actually there are like many layers of relationships in
Yeah.
this project. Yeah.
But basically, you build a relationship with the materials while you are cooking them. Because basically, from powder, you create something that eventually will shimmer or is colorful. So it's really like creating relationship with the, and also testing, documenting. You never know what's gonna happen, like with the humidity or the drying process. So it's really about trusting the flow and see what's gonna happen.
Are there more questions from the audience?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some bacteria now found in the oceans that supposedly can digest plastics a bit. So let's say fast forward, I don't know how much time. Let's say this bacteria becomes prevalent, right? It's up all the plastics. So could we be in a situation where these materials now last longer than plastics?
For all of them. For Sam? Okay.
Sam?
Yeah, just hypothetically, I think that would be a very interesting scenario to explore. My mind already goes crazy, like, okay, but with all the microplastics in our body, what's going to happen with our body then? But maybe that's going a bit too far. Yeah, I think if we have that scenario, it will be very interesting to look at non-plastic materials or non-fossil-based plastic materials to see how we use them, how we can reuse them. And I think we're going to end up with reusing a lot of old crafts, old materials that we sort of forgotten. But there is like a huge repository of non-fossil-based materials that we just don't use at the moment.
And just to add on, whenever there is a solution, a good solution for degrading plastic, I also relate a bit to how recycling was a revolution into plastic and in the end just made the plastic industry boom. And yeah, now we can recycle everything. It's great. It's fine. We're just going to recycle them. So yeah, fossil fuel, it's a problem. It's finite. It's producing carbon. So in the end, you want to find solutions for what's already there, but you always run the risk that the industry incorporates that as, yes, okay, we can just keep doing what we're doing and it's fine. No one will care. Yeah.
Can I add something to it? Maybe we also have to see it all in relation that maybe we're talking now about biomaterials being the next new thing. But I think in the 70s, the 60s, 70s, when a lot of designers were experimenting with plastics, they were really thinking that they were doing something sustainable. So a plastic material could outlast maybe something of earthenware, it didn't break as easily. So these ideas that we had about plastics in that time frame were really different than what we realized later on. So yeah, it's always bound to a time frame. So maybe in a couple of years we will figure things out about biomaterials. I hope that what we know from the past will be, a good lesson. But yeah, we'll see.
Hi. Let's talk about scalability. How do we take this into the mainstream? Because you can usually see a lot of materials, biomaterials, polymers that are introduced, that are presented, but they never reach mainstream, which is where if we are talking about sustainability, is where we should be putting our focus on, because scalability, I don't know, how do we make Coca-Cola turn all her bottles into biomaterials, into biodegradable biomaterials, because we can have biomaterials which are non-biodegradable. Have you thought of that? Have you searched into that area, how you take these really nice materials into the mainstream so that they really make a change?
For whose question? I think for you, or?
Yeah, I think for the two.
For both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go first. Yeah.
That's a big challenge, and that's at this stage of the research when we started, the main goal was, of course, the experimentation and the outlooks we wanted to reach. And already showcasing here at Dutch Design Week, I think, I don't know, 2 out of 3 people that will look at it will say, okay, nice, but how much can we produce of it? Well, what are you going to be using it for? Applications, products, and that's, of course, a very natural way to look at it. And if you're really wanting to solve a problem, how do you scale it up? And as designers, and especially, let's say, coming from fashion, we try to look at it on the way to convince and way to attract and way to shift a more of this perception of the material rather than already going into production phase. And this is a big gap, and when you see a lot of bio-innovations, there's always the place where they struggle the most, because they need a lot of financial investment in order to be able to make this very small scale prototypes into something scalable, and then the cost relation to the ready available solutions, it's often so different. So when you talk about bio-leather alternatives, there was massively investments, and now you see a lot of them going bankrupt, unfortunately, because they just didn't manage to reach the scale. But I think as any innovation is really finding, I think for us, the way we see it, we want to find this fine tune where we could operate on a certain scale that is not like this completely artisan one that we are at now, but it's also not going to be serving the big international fashion brands and producing in the thousands. So when we talk about embellishment, the sequence, that is more of our focus now. So how can we do that on a smaller scale? Maybe we are working with local designers, maybe we are working with interior designers and operating somewhere in between where this product performance is met, but not yet, I think, at a level to completely replace plastic. So that's, I think, our point of view as Materia Futura.
Yeah, and I also think that if you're developing biomaterials and you want to think about scaling up, you actually have to have three heads. So you have the designer that is really optimizing your material in the way that you envision it. You have basically the head of the farmer that is really thinking about, okay, there's a production facility. How do I get the best yield out of my material? And there is a CFO like really thinking about, okay, how am I going to bring this forth? And I think a lot of, the design phase, I think we see a lot of projects there sort of stranding. And then especially if we take the farmer hat, there's also projects over there that come to realize that actually if we scale up and if we start to sell things, the way our process is now sort of orchestrated is actually making us lose money because it's not sustainably developed, the process. So I think it's really about thinking all those steps through, which is of course an open door to say. But I want to emphasize that it's really three different lines of thinking that you have to incorporate, especially in this whole sort of tension field.
I was also thinking about the question that Annemone said about relation. Because what can we do as customers? You know, you said that all the plastic, microplastics that you have in your body, I felt like, what are we wearing, you know? Like really close to us, like so close to us, like really kind of toxic stuff. What can we do with that in combination with the sexy bio-based materials?
Yeah, I think we are surrounded by plastic, so eventually, and also talking again about the scalability, I think we started this project not with the idea of like immediately make a mass production of sequins. So I think it's also a part of changing your mindset. And if you think about brands, again, luxury brands, nowadays it's not anymore the design office making a collection, it's the merchandising, which it means numbers and not creativity at all. So I think that's also the point and what is actually I'm trying to avoid to do again, because I've been for years in such a mindset. So I think in general, the mindset of biomaterials should be definitely different in terms of scalability, but also in terms of what you are wearing, and be aware that you're wearing something that is biodegradable and eventually is not able to cover 1,000 of.
But it could also become merchandise, kind of. Huh?
Yeah, can be possible, but not sure if they're ready for that yet.
We'll see. Are there any questions from the audience? We have a quiet audience today.
So the presentation is about sexy biomaterials. Is it hard to make it sexy? It's just like for both of you. You got your own style. Like there was like a little bit of a comment about the coloring, but it doesn't make it less sexy. But is it hard?
Actually, I mean, I'm talking for myself, but probably for Beatriz as well. Our idea was not to make something sexy. It was more to make something unconventional and attractive and get the attention of people. And eventually also, I mean, from my perspective, working for Gucci and Alexander McQueen for many years, Vivienne Westwood, in such a creative environment, seeing beautiful things. I mean, I've never seen dresses like completely covered by sequins that way, shimmering as well, colorful. So for me, it's more like bringing what I've seen. And also the beautiful thing about these materials is that it's the authorship you have. You are the one making the proper materials. And back in the time, I was like, how can I make something similar? And biomaterials can also bring you in a comfort zone in making your creativity in real life, so you can create anything, you know? So in a way, for us, was more like, okay, we are creative, let's just bring everything on the table and see what's going to happen. So some of the sample, they actually came up this way from a mistake, or just, you know, mixing colors and like just throwing a bit of mineral powder somewhere. Like, so I think it was a playground for us, definitely a playground.
And I think just adding to the sexy thing, I think it's a very provocative term to translate into appealing, but it's the contradiction of not associating sexy with eco, bio, sustainable, also all of this thing. So I think it's really in this contradiction where the project lies. So I would see it that way, because if we were to give all these first terms like the biodegradable, bio-based, and then immediately your head goes into the beige, the matte, the rough, linen, wool, and we want it to be something else, and then that's where they are appealing.
It's interesting that when you say the rough, the linen,
yeah,
it
even
becomes
get
kind
into
of
the boring.
heavy, you know, and that's what I like about this. It's fun, it's playful, it's contemporary, it's light, instead of beige, heavy, you know?
No, and again, it's a matter of taste. What is sexy to one and is not for the other, and it's not like, well, I'm fully dressed in black with some glittery socks, but it's not like this is my definition of sexy or nice, but it's often what is not there in eco design, let's say. So it's I think the bringing the new or the juicy.
Yeah, and I also want to add that Bioma Lab makes amazing bacterial cellulose leather, kind of like, and they also have a lot of fetish outfits. So maybe that goes a bit into a literal sexy biomaterial.
I have a question. You started the presentation with from three questions.
Yes.
The first one was, how do we create materials? How do we create the materials? The second was, how do we convince people to buy them?
Yeah, to accept, embrace.
To accept them, yes. And you also said you were looking in the digital world.
Yeah.
What did you learn there?
Within the digital world, you mean the context of the digital world? I mean, we didn't learn anything, but it was more like...
That's honest.
No, but it was more about trying to understand where people making attracted, and you know, like if you go to probably you're gonna go after, but we have a table with a glass table where we have a museum, an archaeological museum of little creature, but you're gonna see it. And then we were looking at some pictures online, and you know, you have this kind of moire effect and dynamic patterns, and that's something that you can find on the digital world. And we were like, how can we bring this, you know, attraction that people are so, like when they see something moving and online with colorful palette, they're all like, oh, obsessed by, you know, this kind of movement and colors. And I mean, we all get a bit drunk by the colorful palettes. So, I mean, that's just what we got inspired by, and also the reason why we wanted to bring people back to reality and be like, okay, but this is going to be something you will find in nature as well, like in the texture of the butterfly. In a macro lens, you can see a butterfly texture of the wings that is going to do the same effect of this sample, this kind of shimmering effect. So the digital was just the inspiration. Yeah, and so also in the exhibition we talk about digital reality, like AR experience, because during the project we were like, okay, how can we create a connection, a bridge in between the digital reality but also the physical materials? And then we asked Paulina Martina, which is not with us tonight, unfortunately, and she's a digital creator and designer. And then, in a way, she tried to find a way to blend, this kind of shimmering texture within our space and context. So you're going to find projection of patterns within the space that are really matching what we have developed.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So we have this AR layers where you point your phone and then you see filters in the space of 3D objects. But it's basically with the textures that we created with the samples. So in a way we thought, let's bring back from the physical into the digital. So with the things that we cooked, experiment and came out. And then it's sort of like bridging back. And so from that initial inspiration of the digital to the physical and back, and playing out a bit on how can these things merge and overlap.
Wow, it's going to be busy at your exhibition afterward. I have another question here.
My name is Leanda, thank you. I was wondering, because we're seeing kind of two different projects, which is the one on the screen and the one here. And the one on the screen, it's very clear that it is biomaterial, whereas the one that you have made, Materia Futura, is not very obvious that it's biomaterial. Like when you see it, you could think it's plastic. So I was wondering how important is the awareness that what you're wearing is biomaterial, and if it is important to know that as a user, how are you thinking of showing it? You're talking about butterflies and stuff, but if that's not what the material is made of, is like, how do you create this relationship to nature and awareness?
I love this question. I think it's really funny because in a way we were talking about, okay, yeah, this sort of screams biodesign in terms of aesthetics because of what you said. It is green, it is beige. And then this screams more the plasticity. And I think it's really having this sort of dichotomy of what's it? Yeah. Yeah, I think the presentation that is the opposite in a way. Do you have to communicate it? Or I think that really goes back to, what do you want to signify? What do you want to signify with the things that you're wearing? Do you have to signify it? Is it for yourself or for others? So it becomes part of a larger discussion in a way with what you want to express with your clothes. I think it is important, I think, for yourself to know it. But I don't think this is radically different than already checking the label of what you're wearing. And I hope that you're doing that too.
How is that for you?
Well, yeah, my mom taught me to check the label, but I don't always pay attention.
That's good from your mom.
Okay, we have another question over here.
My name is Lydia, and I was wondering, so you work a lot, you're obviously working with bio-based materials, so you're working with biology and nature a lot, and I was wondering how often you actually consult with a biology expert and researcher?
For who's the question?
For both.
Well, we have, at the university, we have, this is the studio, but we also have a biology lab, we also have a chemics lab, we have a biotech lab, we have a sensor lab, makers lab, robot lab. So we have close connections and we consult them as well.
Okay. Well, we also have a question online. So I will go to Zoe. Zoe.
Oh my gosh. So Salome from the live stream is stating that your work emulates nature and in references and appearance, but do you explore biomimicry as part of your research process? The work...
Yeah, did you understand the question?
Yeah, if we're using also biomimicry principles, I think Yeah, we do start something, but I would like to say that we wish to do it more. So when we start talking about iridescence, I was really going into when we were talking about the butterflies and how is that embedded in the microscopic level and how can you look at that. I think somewhat the principle of optical diffraction, which is what creates the holographic effects here, is also there. So it is about structural color and how color is both physics but also chemistry. But the answer is that there is much more to explore there than I believe we're doing currently or that biodesign is doing. So there is always more to learn from. And that's actually a great principle for biodesign to just tackle problems with solutions that are already there. So it's not about reinventing everything, learning from nature.
Okay, thanks. We have a last question over here. Thank you for the question online.
Yes, I was wondering about the role in fashion industry about the biomaterials, because I've been working with biomaterials for the past 3 years, and I'm still a student, but last year I invented the material recipe, but for the past year I've been struggling to find a way to make it applicable and to which industry it suits better, because for all of the people that have advised me where to put it, I've only heard about the appliances in fashion, and that often concerns me, because I started off with working with biomaterials in the fashion industry, and somehow about 2 years in I understood that it makes me feel like I'm only making it for luxury or something that is very artsy, and it's something that it's only one-time thing. And it started bugging me that I feel like this is such a natural thing, and for it to make it kind of in a luxury, to be viewed as luxury, doesn't make sense for me. So that's what I've been struggling with. Maybe you guys have advice for it or just some thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think this question is really on point. I mean, I think this discussion, I think this is a bigger discussion and also a struggle that a lot of designers have. I had students who presented work that was maybe not even that far developed at fairs, and they had producers coming in oh, this is amazing, I want to do it, and then they were confronted with the gap that their recipe was actually not so far. I've also had students who worked a lot on recipes, and I mean, developing a material can take from, 5 weeks to 10 plus years, and it can take from a couple €100 to €50,000 or more. So when is it finished? That's also a thing. But even with a finished recipe, it was still very difficult to find a producer. So that landscape, there is not one single path. I'm not really giving you the answer that you love. I'm sorry, but it is complicated, and it's a combination of.
Don't give up and go for it.
Yeah,
because we really want to change it. Yeah. And thanks for...
Maybe just reconnecting to the first question, because, we have a lot of biomaterial in fashion. Wool, cotton, linen, so all of these are bio-based materials that are the technology for developing these fibers, yarns, and textiles are there for millennia. So where did we lose them? Where did the whole industry of textiles in the Netherlands went? Why we stopped using the wool? Why wool today is all burned, or the farmers needs to pay to get rid of them? And I think there are a lot of projects looking at this as well. So really the solutions that are already there, rather than trying to make then these new materials. So that's why I think for us the focus was specifically in where in fashion we are using plastics and how to use those as a possible solution or challenge, let's say. Because for other things, we already have very good fibers, very good alternatives. So maybe rethinking the systems that got lost, where did polyester became more attractive in every single form of textile, it might be also, a way to tackle the problem.
I would also like to reverse the question, because here in the Eindhoven Innovation Café, we believe in the gift to grow. So you guys give them inspiration, information, and my question to the audience is, how can we help them scaling up this beautiful material? does anybody can help them? Of her has an advice or yeah.
Any angel investor?
I'm going to connect that, but I'm going to also connect with the question you did over there. It has to do with this idea that you invent a material, you develop a material, you have this thing that's going on. And when you have the material, you go outside trying to put it somewhere. And that's, I think it's very difficult. Maybe the approach could be the other way around. Try to find a problem that already exists there and try to develop the material specifically to that. Because when you do that, you already have your market. Okay. You already have your market there. It's already, you don't have to start the other way around. It's like, what do I do with this? You already know what you're going to do. So maybe that could be a different approach on how to work with biomaterials. Like those are really very much related to you, which are very much into the fashion industry. You can easily put those in there.
And how can you help them?
It has to do with the question I did initially. How do you put this into the mainstream? Because fashion industry, high fashion industry is very limited. We just really no environmental impact. It does, but it doesn't have as much as a massive fashion. So, like, how do you put that into the mainstream?
There is another question.
Yes. I can imagine that if you would put it on the market already for the decent price, curious people will start taking it and experimenting with it, with this material, finding the applicability of this material. But I can't even imagine how expensive the production and what will be the market price of this material right now.
I think actually it's not a very expensive process. We work with water, in this case gelatin powder, which is the big bones waste, and glycerin. So it's not expensive. But in terms of, like, I'm not sure if I want to, talking for Materia Futura maybe, but the mainstream right now is not actually the focus. Of course, we want to change something if eventually we can replace most of the plastic within the embellishment, for instance, because I'm not saying I'm going to replace all the rainy coats in PVH, like I'm not going to do that. But embellishment-wise, I can see potential in that. But the point of luxury brands and mainstream is that designers, and I'm a designer too, so I know who I'm dealing with. Designers within this context, they don't want to use recycled yarns, they don't want to use bio-based materials because it doesn't look like it's new. Like people, they always want pure wool, pure cashmere, because it's nicer. So I think the point is that also the mindset of these designers out there, that they should embrace the idea of working with waste, like discarded materials, which is not what we are talking about tonight, but second-hand, upcycling. That's something that should really get into the mindset of these people in order to embrace these materials.
I might find I have an angel for you.
Too bad. I know where to get capital because I'm an American. So Louis Vuitton and Hermes, those companies are all built on leather, right?
I'm from Tuscany, so
right.
I'm in Italy. I'm from Tuscany, and this is the most important district for leather, so I know.
Right, so that's probably not going to change anytime soon. But the chemical companies like BASF and all of the Dow, all the largest chemical companies, they have to be looking at alternative materials, because that next generation of fashion houses probably is going to want something beside leather, right?
Yeah.
So do they fund projects? You're in the business.
Yeah, the point is that, again, I guess a customer of Louis Vuitton, probably if I'm going to say that they're going to buy a bag for 3,000 euros, which is going to eventually at some point start changing the shape, they are not going to be that happy. So I think going to work, like trying to push these materials within the context of a large company such as Louis Vuitton is something we can definitely try, but it's a big...
That's not what I'm saying at all. Louis Vuitton is not where you want to go. Hermes is not where you want to go. You want to go to the companies that make the chemicals now that, for whatever, because they're going to see organics and what's the other word? Biomaterials as the next place to make money. So has anybody, do you know, have they gone to the big chemical companies and said, hey, we've got biomaterial, you know, can give us €1 million?
Yeah, we do know someone that is a former DuPont, and we had already a chat with her, not in that sense, but there is a lot of investment internally on these companies, as far as I know, and at the same time, I think they are much more into the recycling or like how to make it more of a closed loop when you talk about artificial fibers like the polyamide and not polyamide, but the viscose and rayon and all of those. So you're using cellulose and then you're trying to really optimize in that sense. And I think there is a lot of investment there, but then it's also looking still at this cost balance, which the equation is, it's spending towards always fossil fuel. So I think there is a place where there is investment, but there is also a conflict of the values system in place, that where you're willing to.
What do you want to say, Sam?
Well, I just wanted to add to that I think it's a combination of what legislation is coming. So, for instance, the dyers are really looking into new ways because they're forced by legislation. In a couple of years, certain chemicals are no longer allowed in the EU. Of course, a move is move everything outside EU, but on the other hand, we also have a lot of geopolitical tensions. We have a big increase on locality. Also, if you look at the new EU documents, it's no longer sustainability, but it's really replaced with local, and that's also coming, of course, from a defense agenda. But I mean, I'm drifting off. What I wanted to say is that it also has to do with legislation. Hopefully within the dyeing we will see that as a sort of starting point for getting into materials.
But it could also be nice to look at it as an opportunity.
Exactly.
But I think this is something that you could discuss further after drinks, because we are also a bit over time already. Yeah. But we have a small gift for you, and that is Hans, is always our gift. Hans. Hans makes great summaries of the lecture. So please, Hans.
Okay, thank you. I saw the exhibition and I think they're marvelous objects there. Thank you very much for that. What I heard tonight is a creative adventure. And I admire your courage in trying out these things. And I had to think of a command in a fairy tale which says, "Go, I know not whither, and bring back I know not what." And I feel that is exactly what you are doing. And the hint I want to give you is from Dilbert. I don't know if you know Dilbert. He has a lot of nice aphorisms. And he says art is keeping the right mistakes. Okay? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Hans. Okay. So we're coming to an end now. The next Innovation Café will be the 26th of March, and we have a catchy phrase again. Cut the crap. Does innovation regenerate or deplete? Deplete. Did I say that right? Deplete, sorry. Dyslexic. Okay, cut the crap. And a shepherd and a steward. And it has something to do with sheep, I've also heard. So, thank you all. But first, afterwards we are going for some drinks, and we will continue the informal conversations. Please talk to our speakers if you have advice or tips. And of course, Zoe in the back. Afterwards we have innovation dinner. If you'd like to join, please go to Zoe, and we can still continue the informal conversation. All the speakers will have dinner as well, including me. So thank you very much, and enjoy your evening. See you next time.